Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. And Houston, we have a problem. There are some works that I don't think are going to fare terribly well as we move into the 21st century. And one of those is Sibelius' Second Symphony. Now, I know a lot of you will be thinking, well, it's kind of like in the Tchaikovsky period of Sibelius's output, and Tchaikovsky's got issues too, which we will be talking about, of course. But it's not actually that simple when it comes to this particular symphony. I've noted, and I think most of us agree, that the more recent Sibelius cycles tend to show this schizoid rift between the earlier works, Symphonies 1 and 2, and the later, more neoclassical pieces. And today's conductors seem to be more comfortable with those less emotional, more neoclassical pieces, and they play them better. That's true, but it's always been the case, because it used to be that some conductors did the early couple really, really well, and to that they added the fifth, and maybe the fourth if they were feeling daring or depressed, and the seventh at the very end. 3 and 6, not so much. They didn't always figure because they were more neoclassical. So it was the other way. And, things tilt back and forth as aesthetics change. But the Second Symphony is an interesting case because it's always had a plethora of performances. It's Sibelius' most popular works. It's Sibelius' most popular symphony, pardon me. And a good majority of those performances have just been dreadful. I mean, from any period, it's not an easy piece to do. It has some really, really tricky things, as is the case with, Schubert's Great C Major, which we talked about in the previous video. These are not easy pieces, so they require a certain idiomatic identification and imagination on the part of the conductor. The fact is that the Second Symphony is a transitional piece. It's on the way to the more neoclassical phase of Sibelius' style. It's not wholly in either school. So it can work very well if you take it in a more restrained, what you might call classical way. I mean, it worked that way for George Sell. It worked that way for Alexander Gibson. It worked really well even when Nimi Yarvi did it in his first recording, which was breathtakingly swift. So did Paul Paret, which was amazingly breathtakingly swift. The piece operates perfectly fine either way. You could do a big, heroic, romantic performance, as Eugene Ormandy did, for example, or Leonard Bernstein. There are options. There are many options. But for all of that, the recent performances, included in most of the more recent Sibelius cycles, have really not done well by the Second Symphony. And it's very, very interesting. The big problem, the sticking point, and I'm sure you'll agree, is the finale, which comes around twice when it really only needs to do it once, and has a big, huge, heroic peroration. And it could be that the problem with this symphony is that it partakes of, because of its transitional nature, both worlds within the same piece. And you need to have sort of the romantic, heroic approach to the finale, and you could take the leaner, more classical approach to the rest of it. But I don't think it's really that simple. I really think it's a question of imagination. What really fascinates me about the badness of so many recent recordings of the symphony is that with so many great recordings of it out and so many options available that work with the piece, the range of acceptable or legitimate interpretive nuance is very, very well known and there for everybody to hear. They still screw it up. That's the thing that really kind of fascinates me. You have to wonder, in this day and age, with the enormous discography available of all the greatest conductors doing all the greatest works greatly, at the very least, look, if you're a schmagegi conductor and you're pulling this thing out, you want to do it, at least imitate your betters, right? I mean, do something similar. But instead, we get these sort of namby-pamby, watery, insecure, uncertain performances of no special provenance one way or the other. They're just dull. And it it's kind of remarkable. So the Second Symphony is definitely one of those pieces that is going to prove difficult for the 21st century conductor until they get their brains around it and until they figure out exactly how it's supposed to go, or how they can make it go in a way that works historically within the parameters of a really decent idiomatic and powerful interpretation. I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening these days. I just don't. I think that the vision necessary to do it just seems to be lacking as often as not. The last really good performance probably was Segerstam's as part of his Sibelius cycle. It was up there. And, we take these things one at a time. You never know. Someone could always come along who could really nail it, like the way Barbaroli just felt that work. He just nailed it. There are people who can do it, and they may always pop up. But on the whole, as an aesthetic conundrum, I think the Second Symphony is going to really pose a problem. And I don't see it being solved because conductors are too uncomfortable with the romantic aesthetic espoused in that finale, where, just perorating and repetition are rhetorical exercises in and of themselves that need to be savored. You have to believe. You have to have the courage of your convictions. And we are lacking today a certain courage and certainly a certain conviction. That's how I feel about it, at least in that kind of music, not necessarily in others. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.